open YouTube and type my name. Just type my name on YouTube. I want to give you access to my materials. I told you I have close to 100 or more videos on my YouTube channel. And if you would like to see my materials, listen to some of my teachings, you would see all of them there. So just go to YouTube, type my name. I remind you, Clement Ogedegbe is my name. So you type it. See if you can find my YouTube channel. If you see the YouTube channel, just click subscribe. So whenever I post a video on my YouTube channel, you will get notified and you'll be able to learn whatever you want to learn from me through my YouTube channel. It's free. You're not paying for that one. It's free. Okay? Then again, yesterday I mentioned that those of you who would like to be mentored, you want me to guide you through the process of writing your book, because it is one thing for me to teach you like this. It is another thing for you to now apply what I have taught you. It's very easy for people to get excited in an atmosphere like this. And when the training is over and you go back home, all of that excitement is gone. And there's nobody to push you to take steps to actualizing your dreams and the things you want to achieve. And even if you are still excited and you are motivated enough to want to write your own book, there are times where you would need answers to certain questions, and I'm no longer here to answer those questions. So that is why I advise that you join the mentorship group. I ask you to drop your name with Herbert. Can you stand up? So drop your name if you want to be part of the mentorship group. Thank you. And I said that mentorship group is a paid class. It is Authors College. So you're coming there to learn beyond what I'm teaching you in 2 days. Like I told you, book writing is not what you will learn in just 2 days. So for those of you who are going to be registered in that class, you pay for the class. It will run for 6 months. And within that 6 months, you have access to me. What that means is that you can call me on phone. You can send me a WhatsApp message and say, oh, I'm writing this place. I'm stuck here. What should I do? What next should I do? You have access to me. And when I get all of your names, I'll put you in one WhatsApp group where maybe I have a new lecture on any topic about book writing. I can put it there. You'll be able to see it. You can ask me questions. I can guide you through publishing your book online and all of that. Okay? So apart from this training we're doing now, you can only have access to me when you put your name with him. Now, somebody had asked me to call my number because people were coming to me individually to get my number. And then he said, instead of them coming to me, let me just call my number so everybody will have my number. Yes, it's a good thing. I can give you my number. However, if you have my number, it doesn't mean that whenever you call me, I'll be there for you. But for those who are in the mentorship class, I don't have any excuse. When you call me, I have to respond. I hope you understand that. That is clear enough, right? Good. So my number is 0810-6767-851. 0810-6767-851. Clement Ogedegbe is my name. Okay? Thank you. So if you're writing me on WhatsApp or you're calling me, I'll prefer you write me on WhatsApp. Okay? And if you write me on WhatsApp, tell me what your name is and tell me you met me at this training. Okay? Good. So I said we're going to take 10 minutes to talk about what we learned in the other class. We were talking about quotes, links, stories, and reference. So who is going to share with us what they learned in the last class? Who am I starting with?
I'm going to talk about plagiarism.
Okay.
It's impersonation, a kind of entry into somebody's line of ideas.
Yes.
That is a kind of stealing.
Yes.
It is not a good attitude, more especially when you want to claim what you are and you are not portraying it. It is wrong. we should drop that because it will cause us problem. And again, it did not show that we have integrity, because a book writer has an integrity which portrays what he is and what he can do on how to make others be what they are.
Beautiful.
So in other words, we should be our original.
Beautiful. Let's put our hands together for her.
Okay, I want to talk about quotes. And you said we should have at least 4 quotes per chapter. Yeah. And you also said we can get quotes online, on the internet.
Yeah.
And then you said we should have at least 2 stories in every chapter.
Beautiful.
Then you talked about how we can reference those stories. You said if it's verbatim, we should ensure that we reference our source. But we can also paraphrase or rephrase, change the names, just like.
Beautiful. Let's put our hands together for him.
You talked about the quoting aspect. You said if you're quoting somebody's work, that you should reference the person.
Yes.
Or you can rephrase or paraphrase.
Yes.
And then you can also reference the person if you want to. Yeah. But in a situation whereby you change the language, then you can decide not to put the quotes, something like that.
The reference. You can decide not to put the reference.
You can decide not to put the reference.
Yes.
Then another thing again, he said every story, if the pages of this of your chapter is up to 10, you can have like 2 stories. But if it is just 5 pages, you should have 1 story. Beautiful. And many more. But
beautiful. Let's put our hands together for her. I want to stress that even if you rephrase or paraphrase any story, okay, I still advise that you should still reference, okay, just in case you didn't paraphrase properly, they might accuse you of plagiarism. And we know that that story, as long as you didn't create the story, if it's a story that is already online, people, when they are reading, for example, you are writing about how Dangote became the richest man in Africa, you probably have gotten that story from somewhere online. So even if you paraphrase it, we still know that that story came from somewhere. So that is why I still advise that you put the reference, okay?
I learned that you told us that we should not always send our stories on Wikipedia. They get from another bigger one. And I learned that you taught us how to get in Clapodis.
Could you repeat the last thing you said?
I learned that again, that you taught us how to open reference.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you. Let's put that.
I learned that in every book that you're writing, if you must add quotes, you should not write your own quotes.
Yeah, don't quote yourself inside your book. Good job.
About quotes, you also said that quotes should not be paraphrased.
Yes, don't paraphrase.
That's why they are quotes. Then you also talked about stories. That stories should be relevant to the topic that we're talking about.
Beautiful.
Our book.
Any story you are using should be relevant to the points that you are making in the book.
Actually, mine is a question concerning the quotes. I want to talk about what do we do to sub-quotes? Maybe you are going through, somebody's story and the person reference, somebody else's quote.
Okay.
So can you still take from that quote and use?
Okay, beautiful. So you were reading my book, and in my book you saw a quote by Benjamin Franklin. So I took Benjamin Franklin's quote and put in my book, and you saw that quote and you like it. So you want to use that quote in your book also. So you don't have to reference me. You have to reference the original owner of the quote, who is Benjamin Franklin. Do you understand that? Good. You can only reference me if that thing you are copying from my book was my original idea. How did you know that that quote was by Benjamin Franklin? Because I put his name there in my book, so it is not my quote. So don't quote me, quote Benjamin Franklin.
Mine is also a question. Yeah. I wrote down a question, particularly to that aspect where you were talking about this getting or not getting your ideas or writing everything you want to write about from all this artificial intelligence.
Yes.
Now, and yesterday we discussed something about an author being an author, but it's necessary that somebody else wrote the book, but it's your idea.
Yes.
How then can you differentiate between you being an author That's how then can you differentiate this plagiarism of you being an author, somebody else wrote your book, and then copying from the artificial.
Okay, beautiful. You want to answer the question? Yeah, give him.
From what you said, you talked about AI, and you said AI, it's not originally your own idea.
Yes.
It's a computer that is generating that idea, generating that thought based on what you fed the computer. Maybe you said something about parenting, like you said, and then the computer writes for you. But in this aspect that you're talking about now, the other aspect you're talking about now, where you would write for someone, the person gives you the idea. Is that person's idea? Either maybe the person records it, and then you have to write from it. So it's that person's idea. You are just a freelance writer writing for that person. I don't know if I answered you.
Can we put our hands together for him? You still have something to say before I speak.
He still said something about, I get it. He said some people send just a topic.
Yeah.
They'll just give you a title.
Yeah.
And then the writer, that is a freelance writer, develops it with his own quotes, with his own idea and everything. Then another person bears the name author.
Okay. Beautiful.
How is it not plagiarism?
Okay, good idea. Good question. Yes.
Yeah, I want to also talk about the AI.
Okay.
AI as an artificial intelligence, if the information one person fed to that AI become the same with what other people feed to that same AI, there is likelihood that the output may look very similar or maybe the same.
Yeah.
But in the other case, where a normal human being brought the idea, it won't be the same.
Be the same. Beautiful. Let's put our hands together for him.
All right, so let me start with the AI stuff. It just got to us in Nigeria recently, maybe last year or so.
Yeah.
2 years ago, we didn't know anything like AI.
Yeah.
And students have been making a heyday with it. Because lecturers don't even know about AI. So it just makes assignments so easy. But then I was shocked when a friend abroad, she's like, David, you're going to help me write this stuff and all that. Please, our university cautions that they have a way to test whether this was written by AI or not. It will just tell you that this one, it just comes through. This is written by AI, and they'll query you for it. They denied somebody admission just because the person wrote some letter of purpose, statement of purpose through AI.
Yeah.
They denied her and took back the admission. So back here to Nigeria. So somebody invited me for a conversation online, invited other speakers. And the person, the other speaker, they asked a question. He said, okay, I'll prefer to type. And the person, me that was another speaker, I said, this thing it's not looking original.
Yeah.
I was so bothered. I went to AI, put, like this man said, similar. I said, how would they invite you?
Yeah.
And they invited you because of your uniqueness, your perspective, you, personal. And you just went and carried this thing and just paste it, you know. We can as well go there and press it in, and if that's what you want. So the point is, Nigerians, there's a way we do. Once we find something, we press this thing to the extent that I can go without thinking. So there's a place for originality. If you're writing on parenting, your perspective, the reason I'm buying your book is probably that your experience. Maybe I've listened to you, like you talked about your YouTube channel. I like the way this man thinks and all that. All these lectures you've been giving us for these 2 days, you can poach on AI, tell me how to write a book, tell me how to market a book. But the originality, the uniqueness, the in-depth stuff you're pointing out, that stuff may not point out. So it's kind of like you disrespect me to tell me you put something together as a book for me to buy and follow you, whereas it was not you. Then the idea of somebody else writing for you. So this is it, right? Writing is a skill, like we are learning from him, even further in the mentorship. There is a how to go about orderly, coherently explaining your idea. That's a whole skill. Whereas wisdom may not be a skill. Because of your age, some experiences of what you've passed through, you get something where you don't learn. Some things God showed you. The Bible we are reading today, most of them didn't write it actually. I've forgotten which of them. We said, right, tell them, say that, this. Say to them, say to that church that this, say this, say this. They were, dictating to people who were learned enough and had ability to coherently. Even the one with the Bible we have today, there are a lot of books that were not there. So it was somebody that ordered it into chapters. We later got to learn God didn't reveal chapter 1 versus this, but for others' sake. So in this case, it's not as if it's that person's idea. It's just that I'm paying or contracting that person to use his ability to put ideas coherently and orderly. And it's my idea. It's my thought. Like somebody said, it's usually recorded or shared by that person. In fact, if a person does it well, like he talked about Dr. Sunday Adelaja, is somebody I've read many of his books. Once it's not his tone, I will know that this one is not. So even though he is the one writing, you come from the voice, the mindset, and philosophy of that person. Yeah, thank you.
Obina, God bless you. He said something, wisdom is different from the ability to know how to write. A man might have ideas, might have wisdom, but he cannot write. But he can communicate that wisdom to another person to put it in writing. I give you an example. This is the Bible. Do you think God wrote this? Does God type computer? No, God doesn't write. But people wrote this Bible. God spoke to them and they wrote down what God said. So we cannot accuse God of plagiarism. You want to accuse God of plagiarism? Of course, no. Because it was his idea. It was his words that he said and people put it down. Does that make sense? Good.
Can I say something concerning this? We have skilled, in fact, writing are of different categories, different forms. We also have ghost writers. Now, in writing, there must be an agreement, like he rightly said yesterday. There must be an agreement between the writer and the person who owns the ideas too, the person who contracts you to write. So if you meet a writer, you give him your idea, he tells you what to do. He tells you, okay, write on parenting or write on this and gives you some points, or he gives you an audio to transcribe, like he rightly said yesterday. All those ideas are coming from that person. You are a ghost writer, in the sense that you have written, but the ideas and everything, it's not your own. You are a ghost. In quotes, you are a ghost. So everything, all the credit, it goes to that person. Your own is you get paid for what you do.
Beautiful. And you get paid for what you do. So don't worry about the other person. As long as the person has, no, there's a hand here, sorry. Here. As long as the person has paid you for the job that you have done, let the person be the one to feel fulfilled, whether what is there is his idea. If you write something that does not agree with the person's ideology, the person will not accept it. I don't know if you understand. If, for example, I want to write a book for Dr. Sunday Adelaja, and I write something that is not his idea, that is contrary to his idea, he will not approve of that book, and he will not pay me for that book. So for him to approve of the book, it means that what I put there was his idea. Maybe I have gone to his blog, I have read his articles, I've gone to his YouTube channel, I've gone to Facebook, I've watched his videos. I take ideas from him and put all of them together. In fact, in most cases, he will tell you the specific video you should watch. He said, I did a Facebook live video on maybe time. He said, so Clement, go and take that video, transcribe it, everything I said, transcribe it, and then develop it into a book. So what I'm putting in that book did not come originally from me. He owns it. And that was why yesterday I told you that after this class, you can go around, meet your pastors. The message they have been preaching every Sunday that they just put inside CD and nobody's listening to them. Tell your pastor, Daddy, I can take your last Sunday message, I can transcribe it and develop it into a book. Okay? Bargain price if you want. If you want to do it, I say, okay, my father in the Lord, I want to do it for him free. That is up to you also. But I told you, I do not take intellectual property for granted. Okay? If somebody does something and you need to pay the person, pay the person. People most times don't value something that is free. When you give people free things, they don't value it. So let them pay for it and know the value of what you are doing for them. Okay? Good.
Well, I think I want to suggest that they should transcribe it free first for the pastor.
Yes, that's fine.
They should do that first.
I'm just saying, okay? Yeah. Pastor has been blessing you every day, preaching and praying for you. Yes, so
the message was free.
Yes. So even this training, you didn't pay for it. Pastor is the one paying for it, is it not? Yes, so you can do it for free for pastor because here is also blessing you every day and all of that. Okay? But again, it is not only pastors that you can meet. You can meet other people. You can even, when you start advertising yourself on social media that you are a freelance writer or a ghost writer, use Facebook, use TikTok. Let people know that you can write for them. You will see different people from different countries who will tell you, oh, okay, I have this story I want to convert into a book. They'll just record it and send to you. You transcribe it, tell them your price, and let them pay you for it, and you do the work. Yeah.
Okay, you mentioned something in the passing, in the morning about public domain work.
Yes.
That you will be asked whether it is a public domain work.
Yes.
What categories of writing falls under public domain work?
Okay. Now, there are people who, for example, let's say I wrote a poem, and that poem is very popular, okay? And that poem is online. Now, I didn't put a copyright, so that I'm going to teach you about copyright later. So when we get to copyright, you will see that under copyright, you will say that nobody has permission to copy anything from this work without the author's permission, okay? So I have copyrighted my work. So there are some works like that are on the internet, they are not copyrighted. Nobody is claiming that this work is mine and that you must take permission from me to use it. So such works, we'll call them public domain work. So it could be anything. It could be writing about anything.
So if a pastor posts his message,
yes,
and post like on Facebook, without any copyright, it is a public domain work.
Okay, good. Yes. So now, imagine a pastor puts his video on his Facebook page, right? First of all, that work that is there is not copyrighted. There's no copyright to it yet. I can go there and listen to whatever that pastor is saying and pick one or two things from there and put in my book. Okay? Now, when I do that, I can choose to go and reference that pastor. Number one, that pastor has not put that in a book. So if they are going to check for plagiarism, it will be difficult for them to go and to check a video. You get? So that is why it is important that that pastor convert whatever he has said in that video, put it into a book with a copyright, so that if anybody dares copy anything from there without referencing him, he can sue the people and say they copied my work. But if it was just something that he said while he was preaching and there's no copyright to it, he cannot hold anybody and claim that I was the first person that said this in my video. He cannot do that. I don't know if you understand. So such work could be public domain work. Okay? There could be also other writing that people wrote. They just wrote it and put it. For example, I told you that there are some quotes you see. They put anonymous. But that quote originated from somebody. But the person is not really interested in what the people do with the quote. So there's no copyright to whatever he put there. So anybody can go there and use it. And most times, public domain works might be work that are very popular. Let's say, for example, we just had an election, recently, and somebody wrote something on Facebook about the election. Just a normal article somebody wrote. There's no copyright to it. You understand? If you want to copy such a thing and put in your book, you can choose to reference. I advise you reference the person if you know the person that put it there. But if the person did not put their name or anything, they just put anonymous or something, it means you don't know who actually own it, and that thing is popular everywhere on social media. It's a public domain work. You can use it. If you are publishing such a thing, now when I talk about public domain work, I'm not talking about just picking a quote or picking a line. I told you on Amazon, it is when you are publishing your book, they are asking you if that's your whole book, not a quote or a line in the book, if that whole book is yours, or it is another person's work that is on the internet that was not copyrighted. You understand? So if it is such a work that is on the internet, no copyright, you can tell them this is a public domain work. It is not your own. Okay? But if it is about picking just a line from that public domain work and putting in your book, there's no problem with that. But put a reference and put the link where you got it from. Okay, they will not ask you for public domain work for just quotes or just one line or some sentences. They are asking you for the whole book that you want to publish. So if you take somebody's book that they have published online and you want to publish it, and the person did not put any copyright to it, it's a public domain work, you can publish it. And you are telling Amazon that this thing is not my own, it's a public domain work. Okay?
Okay. We talked about chapters yesterday.
Yes.
Is it okay to start his chapter with a scripture?
A scripture. Yeah, you can. You can start a chapter with a scripture. You can start a chapter with a quote. You can start a chapter with a story. Anyone, you can. Okay? You can. Good.
Sorry, sir, just to give, to correct an impression.
Okay.
I overheard here that God does not write.
Okay.
the Bible.
Yeah.
Although I know we are not in a Bible class.
Yes.
But I also read in the Bible somewhere that God himself wrote some script and gave to Moses to deliver.
Okay.
Yes.
No, so...
Okay.
So
he writes.
Okay, beautiful. Yes. Let's not go into Bible studies here, because if we want to go into Bible studies, I can tell you that all of the things that Moses received, he received through a mediator, by an angel. Okay? Yes. So let's not go into that. The main point why I mentioned that is that the idea and the wisdom, everything came from God, and then somebody else put it down. Okay? Yeah, there's a hand here.
Doc, I want to take you back a little bit.
Yes, sir.
I think one young lady here asked in connection to a question about plagiarism.
Yes.
And she said, assuming I'm too old to write,
yes,
and I get a freelancer to do the writing for me,
yeah,
and he does the same thing I would have gone to either artificial intelligence or go to some way to lift.
Yeah.
Is that an acceptable plagiarism or not?
Okay. Thank you. Now, first of all, if you give what you are giving to the freelance writer, you are giving them your ideas. Okay? You are giving them your ideas, you are giving them your wisdom. Their job is just to arrange it, and put it together, and edit something, separate it. Yes.
My freelancer puts my thoughts together.
Yes.
He brings it back to me. And I said, you have introduced your thoughts
into it.
Yes. I don't want this.
Okay.
And he takes it out. The question is, he cannot completely cut off himself from my thoughts, because they are original thoughts of mine.
Yes.
So if he must write my thoughts, he must be inspired with my thoughts,
yes,
to write my thoughts.
Yes.
That's where the scripture comes in, that holy men were inspired,
yes,
to write that thoughts.
Yes.
So if he does not walk in line with mine, he has plagiarized. It doesn't matter how beautiful his thoughts may be.
Okay. Okay, so now, if he does not work in line with your thoughts, that is not plagiarism. Plagiarism is that he copied your thoughts and did not reference you. That is the plagiarism. Now, if he or she writes something...
Don't reference me in my own work.
No. What I mean, don't worry. What I mean, I was just trying to define what plagiarism is. Copying somebody and not referencing the person, yeah? Now, if you give a book to somebody to write for you, you give the person your ideas, and somewhere the person deviated from your ideas. And when you are reading it, that is why you have to, you who is the client or owner of the book, you have to read and agree to whatever that person has written. You have to accept it, you have to approve it. If you see something that does not resonate with you, it doesn't look like your thoughts, you tell the freelance writer, no, let's remove this part, okay, or write it like this and write it like that. So that is not plagiarism. Yes, you have the right as the original owner of the work to accept what the freelance writer has written, to modify it, you know. So if you are going to write for somebody, I will advise that you know the person's school of thought. You have stayed close to the person enough to know how the person thinks. You listen to the person's past messages. You have watched his videos, and you know. Now, I told you yesterday when I started writing for Delaja, the first book I wrote, he made a lot of corrections and all of that. At the time I was writing the third book, you know what he said to me? He said, Clem, you now write like me. That's what he told me. Such that if you pick the book and you read it, if I didn't tell you, if I didn't tell you that I wrote it, you will completely say, this is Delaja's handwriting. Do you understand? Why? Because I have stayed with him. I have sat down with him in his house. We have read books. I have listened to him. He has mentored me. So I know his school of thought. And then he has given me a video. He said, go and transcribe this video. So everything I'm transcribing from the video is his idea, is his thoughts. But now I add one or two things. I expand it. I add stories to it. You know, that is the work of a freelance writer or a ghost writer.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
I celebrate you on that.
Thank you.
It therefore means, if I'm going to write Apostle Zili's message,
yes,
I must stay with him.
Yes.
I can't crash in one message,
yes,
and think I can develop Apostle Zili's thoughts.
Yes.
Let me use that.
Yeah.
Or his mindset,
yes,
or his frame of thoughts.
Yeah.
Meaning I must constantly go back to him,
yeah,
and get his frame of mind,
yeah,
to the point where if I write, like you said, everyone will think it's Sunday Adalaja.
Yes.
So in the same vein,
yeah,
if I'm going to write Apostle Zili's thoughts, I must be, for those who are sons, true sons and daughters here, know that you can't do that in a time frame.
Yeah.
You must stay with him for a while and be able to decipher his thoughts in a particular line of direction he is going.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Now, I'm going to agree with that and disagree with that in some sense. The reason is this. Apostle Ziliagri did a video, for example, titled Principles of Financial Prosperity. Let's say he taught it here 2 years ago. You were in church when he taught it. And that video was recorded. That message was recorded. And you got a flash drive. You collected that message. You went to listen to that message again and again to understand exactly what he was saying in that message. If you are a good writer, you can take that one message, stay on that topic that he has preached about, and write about it. Even if you have not stayed with him physically. See, I told you, I have written books for people in Canada, United States, United Kingdom, Sweden, right? Belgium. I have not met them one-on-one. We have not talked anything outside of just that book title. And whenever I finish writing and I send to them, you know what they say? They say, how did you know what was in my mind? That is what they ask me. Yes, because my mind is so developed in such a way that just give me a topic. Give me a topic, any self-help topic. Say, Clem, go and write a book. I want to write a book about self-discipline. Don't give me any other thing. Just tell me the topic of the book you want to write about. Give me 7 days or give me 10 days. I'm going to send you back a book of 200 pages. And you will agree with everything that is there. As you are reading it, you will say, wow, this is what I would have written if I was writing it by myself. So your mind has to develop to that level. Even though you have not stayed with the person, you have not had any other conversation with the person. The truth of the matter is this. Let me give you an example. If we were going to write, let's assume you give me a title and say, help me write a book about how to become financially successful. Yes? I feel that is a book that anybody can write about. Why? Don't give me any other thing. Just give me that title. How to become financially successful. Now, what do we need to become financially successful? One, we need to learn hard work. Is that not true? I don't need to stay with you to know that we need hard work to succeed financially. I don't need to stay with you. We need to learn how to save money, savings. I don't need to stay with you to know that we need savings to become financially successful. And then we need to learn we need to know about investments. Is that not true? How to differentiate between liabilities and assets. I don't even need to stay with you to know that. This is common knowledge. Okay? And then I also need to know that we need to have a budget and live our lives according to budgets. We also need to know that you don't live beyond your means. Is that not true? Yeah, so these are common knowledge that I don't need to stay with you to be able to write. And if I write a book and I put all of these things, this common knowledge, if I put it together and I give it back to you, you will agree with it. Why? Because this is common knowledge. Except if you are saying that you don't think that we need investment to succeed financially or to create wealth. If you don't agree with that, then when I send the book to you, you can say, no, Clem, we don't need investments. But it is common knowledge that we need investments to succeed. So there are topics like that I don't need to stay with you to know. If you want to write a book, tell me to write a book on how to have successful marriages. I can write it. I can give you 200 pages. In fact, if you give me computer, put computer here for me, and leave me here for 5-7 days, just be bringing food for me, when it's brunch time. I will sit here, I will write it. Just give me computer, I will write it for you, 200 pages. When you read it, you will agree with everything that is inside. Why? Because there is so much information everywhere, and most of this information are common, they are popular information. That if you want to have a successful marriage, first of all, you have to have understanding of your partner. Is that not true? We all know that love alone cannot keep a marriage. Is that not true? Yes, that there must be understanding. Because through wisdom, a house is built, and through understanding, its chambers are furnished. So these are things. I could even pick scripture from the Bible to write about marriage, and you will agree with them, even though I have not stayed with you. I don't know what is happening between you and your husband in your house, but I will write and you will agree. I can go to 1 Corinthians 13 and say love is kind, love is this, love is this. I use all of those qualities, love is kind, love is patient, and tell you how you can apply that to your marriage to have a successful marriage. And you will agree with the book when I give it to you, even though I have not stayed with you. You get the point, sir? Yes.
I celebrate your thoughts.
Thank you.
I celebrate your thoughts too, sir.
Yeah.
But I didn't write the book.
Okay, you didn't write the book. Okay.
I did not write the book. Why? My freelance author wrote the book.
Okay, good.
I only gave you a title.
Yes.
You developed something.
Okay.
And I agree with you.
Okay.
My brain must be dull.
Okay, good. Yes, so somebody wants to respond. Somebody respond to you. Give the mic to... Okay, yeah, you have the mic. Okay, say what you want to say, and then Obina will speak. I love this conversation.
Thank you very much, Doc.
Yeah.
One of the things I've learned during this teaching is that apart from the enthusiasm, apart from the love to write, we must go beyond that to seek the skill to write. If it's the skill you have, and by the grace of God upon your life, that you could write a book for X person that you have not lived or know his spirit for a while.
Yeah.
And when you bring it, it becomes a replica of his idea.
Yeah.
It's a skill, sir.
Yes.
It's not only this teaching here, it's a skill.
Definitely.
2, there are topics that are very universal. I'm a member of Royals of Grace.
Yes.
I don't know if you are.
Yeah.
I have heard my father in the Lord preached over and over. I know his mannerism.
Yes.
Somebody that have not been a member of this church doesn't know.
Yes.
And the only difference I could have is that I could impute some of his mannerisms into the book I'm writing for him than somebody who is external. It doesn't mean that somebody elsewhere can't write a book and present it to him and he will accept it.
Yeah.
Now, further to say is that plagiarism is wearing somebody's clothes and claiming it is your cloth without referencing that this cloth I'm wearing, Brother B or Brother A gave to me.
Yeah.
That's the point. And I have done some academic writings.
Yeah.
plagiarism have percentage, allowable percentage.
Yes.
They know there is nothing now, to be very candid, you want to write about that somebody have not said something about it. That is basic. So in writing, they encourage you to copy. My lecturer will say, copy, but copy intelligently. What does that mean? Patrick Dangbo said, discipline is a way to success. He has said that. What do? Remove the success. Look for synonym of success. Replace it. You have done what? Paraphrased or rephrased his statement. Am I communicating?
Yes.
So even in normal non-fiction writing, there is no way you will write a full book, 200 pages, and all will be idea. There is no way.
Yeah.
There is no way. So, but the plagiarism have an allowable percentage. Don't just go and copy everything and bring. That's plagiarism. And what reduces it is your ability to reference those parts you have taken from our Father in the Lord, who always preach and talk about a story. Talk about what Ogedegbe said. Talk about what Idawusa said. Talk about what Miles Muro said. He is referencing in the same message he's preaching to you. Yes. Thank you.
Let's put our hands together for him.
First of all, my observations about the teaching. Now, it's beautiful, that's one. It gives every aspiring writer the know of doing. That's what I've seen. You've used general writing principles. But, however, while you're teaching on that, I also took note that there are certain writings that no matter who a freelancer is, he will not be able to put that line of thought in writing. That is one thing that I have observed. I have observed that your teaching specifically is centered on self-help, personal development books, which cuts across religion. And that's why you kept on making the statement that you could reference someone that is not a believer. Because it is a self-help development write-up teachings which you've been doing here. Which is a bit different when it comes to doctrinal books. I'm talking as a pastor. That's the line the national bishop was actually talking about. Now you talked about finances, the book on finances. Papa taught. Very true. You could sit down, take his messages, and do a good work. And once it is produced, he would definitely like it. Now, even if you take away whether his mannerism or his mode of communication, because he has a mode of communication. It's like if you read Dr. Miles Morrow's books, you will find his mode of communication in all his books. Same thing with Bishop Ogedegbe. You will see him, and besides, it's like they write their books and rewrite their books in other books. Because that's what we see all across the books that we've read so far. But when it has to do with doctrine, you use the word religious books. Now, when you're talking about religious books, you need to be very specific. Doctrines are completely different. You don't reference an unbeliever in a doctrinal book.
In a religious book.
I use the word doctrinal book. I know why I'm using the word, because religion and Christianity in definition are two different things. You know that. So that's why I said, now, from what we are saying so far, every your line of teaching it's centered on, like what you said earlier, I think I meant that. You said non-fiction writing. So the entire principles that we will definitely use will be cut across. But for the doctrinal books, it is completely different. You need to drink out of the spirit of the man to be able to communicate his theology or his line of thoughts.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Now, the point you just made about doctrinal books is true, because there are some people who believe in a certain doctrine and some other people don't believe in that doctrine. So if I take the doctrine of my own church, I cannot use it to write a book for you who doesn't believe in the doctrine of my church. So that's the point you were trying to make. So for me to be able to write for you, I have to go now to study your doctrines so that I don't write something that is counter to your doctrine. That's the point you're trying to make. Yes, beautiful. I got that.
The point I want to make, 2 points. Number one, that we shouldn't lose the essence of the whole thing, right? I like the examples you gave, but it will make some people think you're just writing because you want to write. I was not here from the starting of yesterday, but one thing I know is that the essence behind the book is a man communicating his own message, his own convictions, and that conviction has its own uniqueness. For instance, there's so many books on financial prosperity.
Yes.
You know, there's a word called thought leadership, thought leader. You mentioned someone like Dr. Sunday and John Maxwell. These are people originating concepts. I've read Miles Monroe on leadership. I've read Maxwell on leadership. I hope to write a book on leadership. Absolutely different. So assuming I contact somebody and say, I will not just say write on leadership. Should I use vernacular? I get what I want to talk on leadership. My perspective, how I have seen it, and how I understand it. That is why I want to talk. Not because I want to put one of the book in the shelf amongst all books. So we should not forget the place of the essence of our uniqueness and perspective, and most importantly, our message. This is what me, Gongon, David Obina, wants to tell the world about leadership. You should pay attention to the message. So even when I'm telling you to write, I'm not just saying, like you told him, go and write a book on financial prosperity and put my name to it. I am saying, come my son, if you were to do it like somebody under me. There's a perspective God has showed me on, for instance, take the Bible side. By the way, I read books a lot and I sold books, so I know some books. Come to the Bible perspective. Oral Roberts, you know, is there. There's somebody he trained in the footstep of Jerry Savelle. Some of these guys, it's just one thing. One is seed. Seed. How seed is the whole thing to prosperity. That's the whole thing. The other one is prophets touching the prophet or something like that. Whereas you carry the largest money will make you rich. You just scatter the whole thing. Say it's not that one. You know, just different perspectives. So your own uniqueness and message. If I'm sending you, finally, I was talking to the bishop. I'm not a member of this church, but I'm understanding that he's a very senior leader, and I respect you, sir. So I want you to see it in this perspective, like you mentioned, sir. You are old. So there's a place for getting feedback. You are trying to communicate your message, but you see you can't write, and you are dying soon. But you say, my son, say to them that, you see, over the years we have taught that this is how to get this thing. But it is not always so. This is what God showed me. This is what God taught me. Have you written? Yes. Say what you have written. You say, no. I said, tell them that it is this way, not this. Because he may have been putting his own personal assumption. So there's a place for feedback. You know, read to me. He mentioned it yesterday. That Adelaja will bring him and say, reread all those things you're writing. And sometimes he'll be listening and say, no, go back to that place. This is not what I meant. This is not exactly. So 2 points I made. The uniqueness of your message and working to get feedback as to whatever you are saying, you have not crossed the boundary of what was in my heart to communicate. Thank you.
Let's put our hands together for him. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So we all have an understanding And the understanding is that, number one, don't miss the originality of your ideas. And I said yesterday that two people can write a book about the same topic, but it is the content, your own idea, your own originality that differentiates, both books. So that is the point that he is trying to make. Okay, so I think that we're going to quickly rush. So now we're looking at how to write conclusion and reference page. How to write conclusion and reference page. Let's move to the next slide now. So a conclusion is an ending section which states the concluding ideas and concepts of the preceding writing. So everything you have written in that your book from chapter 1, it is now time to, conclude or to put all of that to a close. Okay, so a conclusion is an ending section which states the concluding ideas and concepts of the preceding writing. It is the summary of the subject matter of the book. Everything you have been trying to say from chapter 1, the conclusion is now where you wrap it all up. Okay? You now summarize everything you've been trying to say in the conclusion. So a conclusion is an ending section which states the concluding ideas and concepts of the preceding writing. It is the summary of the subject matter of the book. Is that definition simple enough to understand? Yes. Okay? Just summarizing everything you've been trying to say in all of the chapters. It is now time to wrap it up. Next slide. What is the goal of conclusion? So the goal of conclusion, the goal of a great ending or a conclusion is to tie everything together. Neatly summarize your book and then provide a specific call or calls to action for your reader. I quoted Scribe Media, because I got this from Scribe Media. So the goal of conclusion is to tie everything together. You have said a lot of things from chapter 1, chapter 2, down now you're in chapter 10, which perhaps is your conclusion. Now you have to tie all of those things together in one page or in 2 pages, tie it together. And then your conclusion has to give a specific call to action. What was the reason you wrote this book? It is now time to provoke them to take action, to do something. So in your conclusion, there has to be a call to action. I have given you 21 principles on how to become successful. It is time for you now to go and implement or practice those principles. So you provoke the reader to do something, to take action based on what they have read, in the entire book. So that is the goal of a conclusion. The next one. Now, what a good conclusion should do. What a good conclusion should do. So, a good conclusion should clearly summarize your book. It should clearly summarize the book. It should make the book memorable and recommendable. So that conclusion, because I told you that by the time they get to that last chapter or that conclusion, they perhaps have already forgotten some of the things you said in chapter 1. So you have to make the conclusion in such a way that it will help them remember everything that they had read in the previous chapters. Okay? So it makes your book memorable. The last thing they will remember about your book is perhaps what they read, the last thing they wrote and they read in the last page. So make it in such a way that if they forget everything in your book, they will not forget, that particular last chapter or that particular conclusion of your book. So it makes your book memorable and recommendable. Then, very importantly, address any lingering issue and close any open loops. Maybe you started a debate in chapter 2, but you didn't give a final conclusion to that argument in chapter 2. And now you want to finish the book. If you finish the book, you have left something hanging because there was an argument that you didn't finish in chapter 2. So before you conclude or before you are done with the book, in your conclusion, you have to address everything that was left hanging. Any idea that you have not properly communicated and concluded, you now have to conclude it in this conclusion. So address any lingering issue and close any open loops. The reader should feel like everything is wrapped up in a bow. Imagine you told them in chapter 2 that there are 5 principles to academic success, but you have taught them only 4, and now you want to finish the book. You have not given them the 5th principle, and then you say, I have finished writing my book. You have left something hanging. What is that? The 5th principle, which you promise them that you will tell them in the last chapter or in the other chapter. So don't leave anything hanging. Your conclusion should be able to wrap up, everything that was left hanging before and bring it to a close. And then we said your conclusion should provide a call to action. Tell the readers what you want them to do. What was the essence of reading this whole book? I have read 100 pages. Okay, so what next after reading this book? You have to provoke them to do something. Okay? So that's the call to action. Then give even more. Now point them to any additional resources you have that could help them. I said earlier that in my first book, towards the end, I mentioned that there's going to be another book on how to discover your life's purpose. So I touched life purpose a little bit in that. The book is not about how to discover your purpose, but one of the chapters has something to do about it. So I didn't really, do a good job. So I told them, okay, I'm going to talk more on this in my next book, which will be titled So and So. So what I have done, I have given them even more. I have directed them to another resource. Or maybe I already have another book written about how to discover your life's purpose. I told them to get more information about your life's purpose, get my other book or look for my other book, so that is giving them more, pointing them to other resource. It doesn't really have to be maybe just your own book, okay? There's another book that you have read by another author that did a very good job. You can also point them to that other resource and say, to get more, you can read so and so person's book. If you are not a selfish person, if you don't feel that you are competing with that other author, you feel free, you can recommend another author's book to your readers also. Okay, at this point, it's clear enough. Are they clear? Good, next one. So, what a book's conclusion should not do, what it should not do. A conclusion should not introduce any new content. A conclusion should not introduce any new content. It should only summarize the previous idea and the previous content that you talked in the previous chapters. Okay? So pay attention to that. It should not introduce a new content. Because now you called it conclusion. It means that you are concluding something that you have already said. It is not time to now bring a new idea or to bring a new opinion or something. I don't know if you understand that. Good. But I wrote that, I said you can have a new story. You can have a new story if that whole chapter is for conclusion. Now let me explain this. There are times when you dedicate your last chapter and just call it conclusion. Okay? Whereas there are other times where that's your last chapter has a title that is not conclusion. But that last chapter now has 2 subtitles, 2 sub-chapters, and then a 3rd sub-chapter which is now conclusion. Do you understand that? So that whole chapter is not just for conclusion. In that case, that last chapter of the book, you can introduce a new content or a new story in that last chapter. You are still talking, you are still teaching. But when you now get to the last sub-chapter of that last chapter, which you call conclusion, I said do not introduce any new idea or any new thing. I don't know if you understand the point. But if you are going to take a chapter, that whole chapter is called conclusion, don't introduce anything. Just conclude, just summarize. But if that whole last chapter has a different title, and then one of the the last sub-chapter is the conclusion, then you are free to add a story in that last chapter, but don't add it when you get to the conclusion. Is it confusing? Is it confusing? Do you understand it? Good. So there are 2 ways. Either you dedicate your last chapter and just call it conclusion, or you, in that your last chapter, talk about another topic. Okay? Yesterday, this we talked about 5 principles of prosperity. So let's say that the last chapter is the fifth principle to prosperity. So it means that in that last chapter, you must teach about that fifth principle. You haven't taught about the fifth principle before. So you are free to teach about it in the last chapter. And then that last chapter now has a last sub-chapter, which is now the conclusion. So once you get to that conclusion, don't introduce any new thing. Just summarize everything that you have said before. Clear? Good. Okay, a conclusion should not be too long. Okay, it should be the shortest chapter in your book. A conclusion should not be too long. It should be the shortest chapter in your book. If you decide to say your chapter 10 will be conclusion, let it be very short. Okay? But if you decide to say this chapter 10 is the fifth principle of prosperity, then you can make it long. But that once you get to that point of that last chapter that says conclusion, it should be that conclusion itself should be what? Short. Understood? Yes. Okay. A conclusion should not break faith with the reader. This is very important. A conclusion should not break faith with the reader. Now, what does this mean? Don't be disloyal to your readers. Don't turn them off. Don't try to deceive them. What do I mean by that? You said you are writing 5 principles of prosperity. I have read chapter 1. I saw the first principle. I read chapter 2. I saw the second principle. I read chapter 3. I saw the third principle. And then in chapter 4, you didn't mention the fourth principle. And then you enter chapter 5. You still did not mention the fourth and the fifth principle. You didn't mention them. And then in your conclusion, you now said to me that the other 2 principles, I will see them in another book that you have written. That is deception. Because this book is titled 5 Principles. So you have to give me the 5 principles in this book. So if you are not referring me to go and get the other 2 principles in another book, that is deception. It means, yes. No, that is not marketing, that is deception. I'm going to tell you why I said it is deception. Because your book title said 5 principles. Give me the 5 principles in this book. If you have other principles, you cannot say you can get more principles on financial prosperity in another book. But you have given me the 5 that you said this book was about. Do you understand that? So don't break faith. Don't break faith with the readers. If you do that, you have deceived them, and they may not even want to buy any of your book again because you deceived me. You told me you are giving me 5 principles. I saw only 3. And now you are telling me to go and buy another book. There are people who do that when they are advertising. Maybe they are advertising a product. They will tell you they will write a lot of things, but they will never get to that same thing they say they want to sell to you. They'll keep moving you here and they say, click this link, but you have read 2 pages, you haven't seen that same thing that they said they want to sell to you. So that is deception. Do not do it. Next slide. Now, outline of your last chapter. So grab the reader's attention with a great hook. Just exactly what you did in chapter 1, that you try to grab the reader's attention. We know this is your last chapter, but don't make it boring so that the readers will just say, okay, let me just keep this book. So grab their attention with a great hook. Restate the book's mission or the idea, the problem you want to solve. Remind them why they started reading this book in the first place. What problem you want to solve in the book. Remind them in your last chapter. Then summarize all the previous chapters as we have said, and then do a call to action. What should the readers do when they finish the book? You have to charge them to do something. So this is how your last chapter should be. It's similar to what we have said before in previous chapters. Okay, next slide. Okay, this is an example of a conclusion. Yes, okay, come and read this. This is an example of a conclusion.
As I bring this book to a conclusion, I want you to know that one of the greatest gifts that God has given to every one of us equally is the ability to dream. We all have the freedom to dream as much as we want and decide how big we want our dreams to be.
Hold it there. This is conclusion, right? This is conclusion of the book Dreams Don't Die. What I just said here now, do you think it is the first time I'm saying it in this book? No, I had already said it, maybe in chapter 1. But now I'm reminding them what I said in chapter 1 because conclusion now. Okay, go ahead.
To live a fulfilling life on this earth, you must dream and dream big. You must not only dream, but believe in the beauty of your dreams.
In fact, believing in the beauty of your dream is a title chapter of one of the chapters in the book. So I'm reminding them now what they read in chapter 2. You get? Go ahead.
If you work hard to pursue your dreams and never give up on them, you would surely achieve them no matter how many they are.
So there's a chapter that talked about not giving up on your dream. But now I'm reminding them. Maybe they have forgotten in chapter 3. Now they've gotten to chapter 10. I'm reminding them. That is, I'm summarizing.
I have learned that dreams do not die. People give up on them. If you have abandoned your dreams and concluded that they are dead, I would dare you to pick them up again and pursue them.
What is that? Call to action. I'm challenging them now to go pick up their dreams, all the dreams that they abandoned. Should go and pick it up again. Okay?
I believe that you have learned from this book the principles to achieving dreams. I do hope that you would apply all that you have learned to your everyday life as you pursue your dreams. Dreams do not die. People give up on them. Dream as much as you want and follow them through till the end. You are an achiever, and I believe you would not give up on your dreams. I wish you success as you journey through life. See you at the top. Cheers.
Do you love that? Yeah. Put your hands together if you want to. So by the time the reader is dropping the book, he's feeling energized. He's feeling excited that now I can go back and pick my dreams that I abandoned. And let me say this to you. It is never too late to become what you might have become. It is never too late. That's what I was trying to say in this book. Any dream that you felt you did not achieve before, it is not too late for you to achieve it now. You can still pursue that dream. You can still get it. And I was saying in this book that dreams don't die. Nothing like, oh, my dream died. No, dreams don't die. You abandon the dream. If you go back and pick it up and pursue it, you will eventually fulfill it. You'll get it. That's the idea of the book. Okay, thank you. Let's see if we have another slide. Do we have another one?